The Navalny topic is not so actual right now, but I think it's important to consider the case for which Navalny is in jail. I'm sure Navalny's card will play in the future again, and history of YouTube should have this information. I also touched the ECHR topic in short. In this review, we'll take a look at the second criminal case of two, which Navalny is sentenced is. First case, Kirovless, I'll touch later if this video will be interesting to you. We'll use the most reliable source of the case, the court audio recordings.
Company main subscription agency, year 2007. Me and my brother had an idea to organize a business which should be related to provide services on an electronic subscription to the media. Completely legally, we registered the separate company Alardec, which established the company main subscription agency. Soon after the idea just failed. I gave the company to my family. I said, there is a company, take whoever wants if needed for some formal actions.
That's how it all started. Probably Alexei Navalny really didn't knew what his brother doing with his company. But as owner, you have a responsibility anyway. Let's spot our first point of interest. This is Navalny company Alartag and its subsidiary main subscription agency. And here Russian Post and Alexei Navalny's brother Oleg Navalny. He is one of the heads of original Russian Post office. At this point everything is fine. Yves Rocher just working with Russia Post until 2008. They are sending hundreds of packages across Russia every day through the office where Oleg Navalny working. At 2008, Russia Post office where Oleg Navalny was working starts to experiencing problems with a parcel's bandwidth. Big companies have to divide their sendings with different Russian post offices in the region. Yves Rocher trying to do the same, but faces some problems. The head of Yves Rocher Postal Services, Janna Batova, going to this regional Russian post office to ask for help.
The Yves Rocher Vostok parcels monthly throughput was limited from 100 to 150,000 pieces. There was no way to accept a greater number of Yves Rocher parcels at Yaroslavl Russian Post. I discussed this problem with Navalny Oleg, who explained that if the company Yves Rocher Vostok wants to solve the problem, it needs to sign a contract with Main Subscription Agency Limited, which has a close relationship and links with Russian Post. According to Oleg Navalny, Main Subscription Agency contract will allow Yves Rocher to avoid the problems with receiving parcels in Russian Post. Oleg Navalny promised to solve these problems and contribute to increase the receiving bandwidth for Yves Rocher's parcels. I assumed that the contract with the company proposed by Navalny Oleg will allow us to avoid problems with shipments reception at Russian Post divisions.
This partnership with Russian Post counterparty, as Yves Rocher thinks, looks even more realistic, because Oleg Navalny organizing work between his company and Yves Rocher through real Russia Post dispatch. Alexei Ilyushchenya.
In the process of signing the contract, Navalny Oleg said that orders for the cargo transporting needs to be referred to a subordinate Ilyushchenya directly, who will provide the transport. I was familiar with Ilyushchenya Alexei before, because I've been in contact with him on questions of shipments.
Alexei Ilyushchenya wasn't really interested in what scheme he works in. He just forwarded Yves Rocher orders to the Navalny's company and got the money from Oleg Navalny personally. Next, position of Elena Shakhmanova, Yves Rocher lawyer.
From your statement, ask you to prosecute persons who buy The term used abusive trust of Yves Rocher East employees were persuaded to conclude a contract with LLC main subscription. Explain why. In your statement was included the term abusive trust? What might you mean by this? At that time, for us, for our hands, let's just say, the main factor which aroused our suspicion was that, firstly, we didn't know that Oleg Navalny, who, according to Zhana Batova, recommended to conclude the contract, was one of the beneficiaries of the company main subscription agency. This fact, when concluding the contract, wasn't brought to us. Accordingly, the company Yves Rocher East, which supports the principle of openness of relations with counterparts, considered this fact as, let's say, as a fact unworthy of trust between partners. The second moment that caused our well-founded fear was that they were told that the main subscription agency has been cooperating for a long time and it's, how to say, it's a trusted counterparty and partner of Russian Post, which for us as a federal client of Russia Post, served as certain recommendation.
What else interesting here? It's possible Oleg Navalny involvement in sabotage of other Yves Rocher transport companies' work.
Please tell me. The claim of a crime indicated that Yves Rocher East was forced to use the services of LLC main subscription without choice of another counterparty. So, how can you explain why in the crime statement were included these terms? We tried to work with different transporters. For some reason, these transporters didn't handle, let's say, the same work that main subscription agency did. In particular, there was no problem with handover parcels to post offices. We applied term forced. We had tried different transport companies. As a result, the main subscription agency, the company providing the same service as other transport companies, didn't meet the same problems other transport companies faced. So we say that yes, we were forced. At that time, we had our own transport companies we worked with from 2005 and earlier. But we couldn't continue working in this direction with them.
But it's not proven. Just something to think about. All this became the origin of the first part of the prosecution's position: abuse of trust.
The problem was discussed with Navalny Oleg Anatolievich, who explained that to solve the above problem, Yves Rocher is necessary to conclude a contract with main subscription agency to provide transport services. According to Navalny, this enterprise had close relations with Russian Post. Cooperation with main subscription agency will allow LLC Yves Rocher Vostok avoid problems with receiving parcels at Russian Post. Since Oleg Navalny promised Yves Rocher East help to increase the throughput ability at Russian Post offices for parcels issued to him, I would like to note that victims' representatives, employees of the company and leaders of organizations which Oleg Navalny entered into a contract believe that main subscription is the Russian Post enterprise because Oleg Navalny presented information in that way. Besides, Oleg Navalny at the trial showed that the Russian Post staff was forbidden to communicate with federal customers in person and offer them something.
So at this moment our scheme looks like this. Yves Rocher entered into a contract with main subscription agency, paid $750,000. From Yves Rocher point of view, they works with Russia Post counterparty through the real Russia Post manager, which is totally untrue because main subscription agency have no any connection with Russian Post. For its part, main subscription agency didn't do the transportations. Oleg Navalny transferred all the orders to a real transport company called Avtoliga, paid them $400,000. The next question is damage to Yves Rocher. It's more complicated. Here is position of the prosecution.
The investigation established that at the time of signing the contract initiated by Navalny Oleg between Yves Rocher Vostok and main subscription agency for service of of transportation cargo at the price for one trip Yaroslavl-Moscow in the amount of $320 including tax. Other transport services on the market including Avtosaga LLC was able to provide the same service for much less tariff, not exceeding $200. In this way, with a free choice of any of the above options for the carriage of goods, instead of the forced conclusion of a contract with the main subscription agency on the initiative of an employee of Russian Post, Navalny Yves Rocher would significantly reduce costs to pay for this type of service.
So, the position is next. Yves Rocher got damaged because of totally overpriced contract, made with abuse of trust. But a thing which made this case more complicated is own Yves Rocher calculations. They published a document tells that prices was okay, and Yves Rocher got no damage. Here is an answer of an investigator of this case.
As you said about the damage to Yves Rocher, the calculations presented by the company are wrong in your opinion. Well, I wouldn't say it's wrong. They're fundamentally incorrect and doesn't meet materials of the criminal case we've collected, including materials of the criminal case, which Yves Rocher gave us itself, Yves Rocher, and Russian Post as well. This statement, this calculation doesn't correspond to the materials which we've collected. Can you explain to us what exactly wrong is you think? Everything is simple. So, while establishing the tariff in the contract between Yves Rocher and fake enterprise main subscription was included a tariff providing a delivery of goods by round trip. So, a car leaves Yaroslavl, reaches Moscow and returns to Yaroslavl. Accordingly, the tariff was set for round trip. But, in this case, there was no round trip. The cars were loaded, which were unrelated to main subscription, but owned or rented transport by LLC Avtosaga or LLC and PK Povolzhy, as far as I remember. They followed in the city of Moscow and there was no trip back. In case a round trip was envisaged, then the tariff was set to 1.5 times more than the one before.
So, in summary, Yves Rocher made a calculation like it was a transportation in two sides. From the point of uploading goods to a point of unloading and road back. But main subscription agency did transportations in one side only. What the reason for Yves Rocher to make wrong calculations? Maybe they just don't want to be involved in this case, because it's bad for business. Or maybe it was a way to avoid responsibility for the head of Yves Rocher East, Bruno Leproux. Officially, he quit Yves Rocher just after the criminal case started. Are all these things meet Article 159 of Russian Criminal Code, which Navalny was convicted for? The article said, fraud is a takeover of someone else's property by deception or abuse of trust. And the most important point of this article is non-performance by defendant. So, from my point of view, unfortunately, no. The obligations were met. All this case is more consistent with Article 178 of Russian Civil Code, which doesn't imply a criminal offense. It said, a contract made under the influence of a delusion which was so significant that his party, judging the situation reasonably and objectively, would not sign the contract if he knew about the actual state of affairs. But it's not all the story. Next criminal charge of the same case is laundering of the income.
Having stolen money, Yves Rocher East organized its legalization by transferring funds from the account of main subscription agency to the account of LLC Kobiakovskaya Braiding Factory. However, at the hearing, When examining evidence established that the lease agreements were fictitious.
The next point of our scheme is Kobyakova Breeding Factory, a Navalny's family company. About $75,000 remained on main subscription agency account. It was spent on salaries and other stuff. Other $285,000 were spent on rental of premises of Navalny's oven factory. And it's clear that the rental was fake, because the price was 10 times more than it could be. And it's without a question of renting of their own facilities. It's easy to check. Kobyakova is a small village where is no such prices. We could look at the map of the same area and we'll see that actual prices 10 times lower. Another point of this case is the fraud towards multidisciplinary processing company. I wasn't included a detailed review of this scheme, because the video would be too long, but it's very similar to the Yves Rocher. And another important point is that it's the second charge. Navalny already got a probation before. I want to be honest with you and with myself. Even it's uncomfortable for me. From one side we can say Oleg Navalny did so much fraud that he deserved punishment. From other side, this case should be divided on a few other cases, and all of them is a breach of a civil rights codex, which doesn't imply a criminal offense. In my point of view, Navalny's brothers should have been a big money fine, and if they hadn't paid it, it's a reason for a real criminal offense. Anyway, Alexei Navalny got only a probation, and according to Russian Federal Penitentiary Service, he broke the rules 50 times. That's the reason he is in jail right now. I guess this video nobody will like. The case is not so strong to satisfy Navalny's opponents, and not so weak to satisfy Navalny's supporters. But I hope our target is truth, even it's uncomfortable for us. And about ACHR, it's easy one. ACHR published about 8 judgments. The last one, which says that Navalny should be released immediately, based on ECHR Article 39, Nature and Extent of Risk to the Application's Life, which is understandable in the light of information campaign of Navalny's poisoning, which wasn't true, as I think. And I put a number of arguments in my other video. Other judgments related to the rallies and the house arrests, Navalny got a few times. But in this case, the most important, the very first judgment, where ECHR doesn't find the political compound. That judgment was about that thing I already highlighted before. Too broad interpretation of the Russian criminal code. Russia paid for it, and it doesn't mean the case should be cancelled. I hope this video was useful for you. It was hard to listen about 10 hours of the court recordings to figure out all this case. If you wish to get an honest view of Russian politics from me in future, you could help me pressing like button. Sorry for being indelicate, but you could support my blog buying stuff I made. It's reminder magnets, a fun way to replace sticky notes people leave to each other. It's a lot of variation in my shop. Link in description. Thank you.